What we're going to learn about today is if, like, the cosine of x equals 3/8, what's the sine of x, the tangent of x, the cosecant of x, the secant of x, and the cotangent of x? And let's say we're in quadrant number 4. Okay, how do we figure this out? Well, the easiest one to figure out is its inverse function. What's the inverse function of cosine? Secant. The secant would be 8/3, the reciprocal. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. Okay? What's the Pythagorean identity that goes with cosine? Sine. Sine squared of x plus cosine squared of x equals 1. So sine squared of x plus 3/8 squared equals 1. Now you just solve for sine. Sine squared of x equals, or plus 9/64 equals 1. Subtract 9/64 from each side. 64 minus 9 would be 55, correct? Then take the square root of each side. The sine of x would be the square root of 55 over 8, because the square root of 64 is 8. Now, we're in quadrant 4. What is sine down here? Positive or negative? Negative. So it's negative square root of 55 over 8. Now, if we know the sine, what is its reciprocal function? What's the reciprocal function of sine? So cosecant of x is negative 8 over the square root of 55. Can I leave the square root of 55 on the bottom? No, so I multiply top and bottom by square root of 55. So cosecant is negative 8 square root of 55 over 55. Now, to find tangent, what Pythagorean identity is tangent in with? Secant. Tangent and secant belong to the same one. So tangent squared of x plus 1 equals secant squared of x, right? So tangent squared of x plus 1 equals 8/3 squared. So if I subtract 1 from each side, 8/3 squared is 64/9 minus 1. 1 is 9/9. What's 64/9 minus 9/9? 55/9. Take square root of each side. Tangent of x equals the square root of 55 over 3. Now in this quadrant 4, it is also negative. So it's negative square root of 55 over 3. The cotangent is the what of the tangent? Reciprocal. So it's 3 over the square root of 55. Can't leave square root of 55 on the bottom. So it's negative 3 square root of 55 over 55. And that's how you find the rest of the trig functions, using reciprocals and Pythagorean identities. Now, if it is up to Carson Wolf, we'd stop right now. but it's not up to Carson Wolf. So we're going to do one more problem. I know. But we're going to do one more. One more example problem. One more example problem. All right. The tangent of alpha equals 3 halves, where alpha is in between pi over 2 and pi. And you're going, what does this talk about? Well, this is talking about what quadrant we're in. What quadrant is in between pi over 2 and pi? Quadrant 2. Oh, tangent is negative in quadrant 2, so that should be a negative. Okay? Because over in quadrant 1, cosine is positive, sine is positive, tangent is positive. In quadrant 2, cosine is negative, sine is positive, which makes tangent negative. In quadrant 3, cosine is negative, sine is negative, tangent is positive. In quadrant 4, cosine is positive, sine is negative, which makes tangent negative. Because tangent is sine over cosine. So if you got a negative divided by negative, it's positive. Positive divided by negative is a negative, and so on. Okay. All right, so we have tangent, so I need a sine of alpha, a cosine of alpha. I need a cosecant of alpha, a secant of alpha, and a cotangent of alpha. All right. What's the easiest to find out of all 5 of these? And those who said cotangent are completely correct. Because all you have to do to find the cotangent is to do what? Do the reciprocal. Or, in Carson Wolf terms, flip it. Oh, okay. In Quinn's terms, flip it. Yep, that's all we have to do. Okay, now Pythagorean identities. Okay. Tangent. I know that tangent squared of x plus 1 equals secant squared of x, right? So, negative 3 halves squared plus 1 equals secant squared. So 9 fourths plus 1 equals secant squared. 1 is 4 fourths. What's 9 fourths plus 4 fourths? So 13 fourths equals secant squared. So if we take the square root, secant of x equals the square root of 13 over 2. Now we're in quadrant 2, and secant would be negative because cosine is negative. Okay? So both secant and cosine are negative. So secant is negative square root of 13 over 2. So what would that make cosine? What would you do with secant? flip it. So the cosine of x equals negative 2 over square root of 13. Can't leave square root of 13 on the bottom. So it's negative 2 square root of 13 over 13. All right. So cotangent is the nicest looking thing here, left, right? Other ones are kind of crazy with square roots and that. So I might as well use cotangent. What Pythagorean identity goes to cotangent? Cosecant. Cosecant square root of x equals cotangent square root of x plus 1. Cosecant square root of x equals negative 2/3 squared plus 1. So we have 4/9 plus 1. 4/9 plus 9/9 is how many ninths? 13/9. So the cosecant squared equals 13/9. So if we take the square root, cosecant of x equals the square root of 13 over 3. So the sine is the reciprocal of that. Can't leave square root on the bottom. So it's 3 square root of 13 over 13. Notice how tangent is negative 3/2. If you put this over this, wouldn't it be negative 3/2? Way to check your answers a little bit. All right. So, page 165, I'm going to give a big assignment for the weekend. 21 through 24, all of them. So you got all 4 of those problems to do. The first 2 problems are what we finished up yesterday with. Okay? The something in terms of something else. And then the next 2 problems, 23 and 24, is what I just showed today. Okay? Those are the 4 problems to do. Get to work.